Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for tuning into the Ground and Poundcast. It is me, your host, Vince, the world's okayest jiu-jitsu blue belt, and I am joined with the soothsayer of the MMA world, Nostradamus. Tell everybody hi, Roy.
Hello, world. You know, this was a heck of a card, and I can't believe that you dropped the ball and missed it.
I missed it, so I'm not going to lie to you people and pretend I watched it. I had a very busy weekend. I had a lot going on, and I keep saying I'm going to go back and watch these fights, at least a handful of them, and I just haven't done it yet. I have seen the finish for the main event, the Vallejos versus Emmett, because that was popping up all over social media. So I at least saw the finish, but I didn't get to see the full fight. So this episode is going to be special because instead of me just kind of reviewing and, going back and forth, giving our thoughts on the fights, I'm basically going to interview Roy, and Roy's going to really just tell me how this event played out. So let's go ahead and do that. Roy, tell me all about this card from top to bottom. Tell me about all the action, what stuck out. What did you like? What did you not like? Tell me about the fights. The floor is yours.
So, the last few weeks, since the Paramount deal has taken over, we've repeatedly said we need to adjust our expectations because the matchmaking is better now. And we're seeing more even fights. This card, while it was fun to watch and the fights were bangers, it's made me realize that we've got a little bit of a hiccup, a little fly in the soda, if you will. The matches, to me, felt a little too evenly balanced. And we're seeing, even with the new bonus structure in place for finishes, fights are going the distance. It's really kind of crazy.
Interesting. Even with the decisions, though, were these pretty fun fights to watch?
They were very balanced fights to watch. Yeah, they were enjoyable, but you didn't have somebody really pulling ahead and dictating the fight. You had two guys or girls, I don't want to leave out Limos and Robertson here. They're just evenly matched. Nobody in any of the fights ever held a big advantage unless it was one of the fights that actually ended. And they only held the advantage in the exchange that they finished the fight in. Past that, it was just balanced. It's almost not exciting to watch, except for it kind of is because they're so technical.
Yeah.
I'm seeing what I'm getting at. I think for the casual viewer, someone who is coming into MMA fresh or without a good base, they're going to look at these really high-level grapplers and strikers and yawn because you don't have that one guy or girl bulldozing the other one or controlling the action. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Whenever you have almost like mirror matches with each other, and whenever it's that even, unless someone just kind of catches the one little flash moment, I could see it kind of being tit for tat up into the decision. So not all the fights turned out that way, though.
No, and Emmett versus Vallejos was a good example of me being 100% wrong because from the beginning of that fight, Vallejos took the center of the octagon and Emmett circled the whole time. Emmett was circling, trying to find an opening, and he could not get an opening on Vallejos.
And that's saying something because Emmett he's a veteran. He has a very good fight IQ, and he does have pretty good striking, just as John Silva.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about this fight is this was the biggest age difference between fighters the UFC has ever hosted. Emmett is 17 years older than Vallejos. Talk about feeding the elderly to the young.
I got to correct myself. I said ask John Silva. Wrong name. I meant to say ask Bryce Mitchell.
I don't want to ask Bryce Mitchell anything.
Because I just remember that knockout a few years back where Emmett damn near killed Bryce Mitchell. But anyway.
That's what made me an Emmett fan.
Yeah, I think it's what made a lot of people Emmett fan. I mean, I already knew about him before, and I liked him, but I kind of really liked him after that. So I was kind of rooting for him in this match because of that. But Vallejos, I didn't see the fight, but I did see the only thing I saw from this card was the finish. And it wasn't like just the couple of punches at the end. It was like the ending sequence. I saw like the last
from basically when he put him against the fence. To
I saw like the last minute. I saw like the last minute or so because it was posted on social media.
Vallejos came off of holding the center of the octagon and got Emmett against the fence. The whole tide of the battle turned in Vallejos' favor, and he dominated with elbows and knees until Herb Dean stepped in and said he's had enough.
Right. Now, a lot of times on these episodes, when we talk about all the winners and losers, we really break down what is next for this fighter and that fighter. I don't think we need to do that for every fight and every fighter this time, but I am going to do it for Vallejos. So he did just have a very impressive win against a veteran in the game who has a very well-rounded style. And he got a very impressive first round TKO over him. And now he is currently 18-1. His only losses to Jean Silva. This time I did use the right name when I mentioned Jean Silva. Other than his Jean Silva fight, he's undefeated. So he's 18-1. So if we are going to talk about what is next for this fighter, this will be the one fighter that we should really do that. What do you think is next for Vallejos after this?
Silva's ranked 6. Vallejos went into this fight ranked 10. I think it's time to give him an opportunity to get that one back. I'm big on fighters getting to go back and fix their past losses. It's been, let's see, the fight with Silva was August of 25. That's not really long enough to have made the adjustments needed. Let's hold off on that for a second. Maybe Arnold Allen. I've been waiting for him to get back in the octagon.
Yeah. Arnold Allen is booked. I don't have it up in front of me, but one of the upcoming events within the next few weeks or month or so, he is booked. If I'm not mistaken, because I was looking at the upcoming cards.
I didn't do any research before throwing that out there. I was literally like, hey, that would be a fun fight.
Yeah, I think he's actually main eventing something. If you give me, I'm not going to dig too far into it, but I'm pretty sure maybe it's not a main event. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time looking around, but I do know that he is booked for something coming up soon. But still, that could be a good fight. There's lots of fights here.
I think Vallejos should fight next.
Well, let's see. He's ranked 10. I mean, Jean Silva, Arnold Allen, Zalal. I think any of those guys, when they're available, would be good.
Zalal is booked coming up too, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they all are. So I think basically you just got to wait to see who's available first, and if they don't take a very bad loss where they're on a medical suspension. Here's another one that would be very interesting because this guy is rising like a rocket, Vallejos that is, and I don't know if you want to fast track him too quickly, but obviously he's looking at trying to gun for the top and get a shot at the title. And there's another person ranked a few above him. Maybe it's too big of a jump, but it's a person who's a former champion from another weight division, now fighting in this division. And he has been asking for a title shot, although a lot of people don't think he's deserving of it. How about jump him all the way up to number 5 and fight Aljamain Sterling?
It would be a good fight. It would be a good test for Vallejos. He's coming out and he's more impressive each time. It would be a really good test to see what he and Aljo could do.
Yeah.
Plus, I think that would break the pattern that I've been noticing of very even fights.
Right. Now, since I didn't see these fights, instead of going through and breaking down every one of these fights unless you want to, instead of doing that,
I've got perfect little synopses for you. I've got notes. I planned for this one, brother.
Good. All right. So we could be very brief on some of these if you choose to, but there's 2 fights in particular. No, I have 3 fights in particular that I do have questions for when we get to them. But we're going to go ahead and start from top to bottom. We've already covered Emmett Vallejos, so we're going to go right down. Women's strawweight. I think this is the only women's fight. No, there's a couple in the prelims. This is the only women's fight on the main card. Jillian Robertson versus Amanda Lemos. These are two rising stars in the strawweight division that are trying to gun for the top. If I remember correctly, they both already have wins against the former champion. If you give me a minute to confirm that, I could be wrong. No, Robertson does not. I'm pretty sure Lemos does, though. Let me double check. Again, I could be wrong. So, yeah. So, Lemos, who lost, has a win over Mackenzie Dern. Jillian Robertson hasn't fought Mackenzie Dern yet. So do you think this is an impressive win? Do you think that this performance is deserving of moving Robertson up to being right on the cusp of a title shot, or no?
No. This match was Lemos on her back with Robertson on top, controlling the grappling and raining down what ground and pound she could without the power to finish the fight. It was not that they both have about the same power. That Lemos lost the grappling exchanges, but for the little bit they were on the feet, was controlling the feet. Basically, Robertson did the same thing to Lemos that Chimaev did to DDP.
Gotcha. So unlike most of our episodes, the rankings have been updated because we are a few days behind at the time recording this. I'm looking at the rankings right now, and Robertson is now ranked number 5. And I look at the names above her, and I've talked about the strawweight division before actually being one of the better ones for the women's divisions. And going 4 and above, you got Yan Xiaonan, Verna Jandaroba, Tatiana Suarez, Zhang Weili, and then the champion Mackenzie Dern. This is going to sound crazy, but I think in that list of people, Dern is probably the least impressive one, even though she's champion. And even though she's 2-0 over Verna. Do you think Robertson can hang with those top 4 or 5?
That's a really good question. It's going to be a gauntlet for her to try and climb higher if she fights the same way she did it against Lemos.
Yeah.
Lemos has a very obvious opening in her game, in her wrestling game, grappling game, that you could drive a truck through, and Robertson was able to take advantage of that. I don't see her having that clear of an advantage over anyone in the top 5.
Yeah.
Especially not Mackenzie Dern, because that girl is just badass.
And
someone's got to be her cheerleader.
Someone has to be. I'm still surprised she beat Verna, and I look at those other names that are on the list, and a lot of them have wins over her. So,
all right.
Saying.
Up next, we've got Jose Delgado versus Andre Touchy Feely.
And if I remember correctly, that is his nickname, isn't it?
Yes, and that's why I used it.
Awesome.
I think it's maybe the best nickname in the sport.
So this was a split decision. Tell me about this fight. I know nothing about it.
Standing battle, back and forth throughout the entire thing. The big notable thing that won Delgado the nod, I think, is that he lands more with his elbows and his knees than he does his punches and kicks. And it really showed in damage differential.
Gotcha.
But split decision, these guys were about as evenly matched as you could have. It just came down to who looked more worse for wear.
Fair enough. All right. Now, the next fight is one of the fights I have questions on. So, Marwan Rahiki going against Harry Hardwick. Flashback a few months ago, Harry Hardwick fought in the UFC, and in the first round, it was a TKO by leg kicks. He just let the other guy kick him in the leg over and over and over. He didn't even try to stop it, and eventually got to the point where he could not stand, and he had to get hauled off on a stretcher. This time, even though I didn't see the fight, I still read about it online. I know what happened. Harry Hardwick lost because he got his jaw broke in the second round.
It broke, man. It snapped. It pushed teeth out, and when they showed in his mouth, you could see where the bone was coming up through the gums. It was sick, and the guy still wanted to continue. He was actually trying to argue with the doctor and couldn't speak because of the damage to his face. That is a tough dude.
Look, tough. You ever heard the phrase, you're too tough for your own good? Harry Hardwick.
That's Harry Hardwick.
Harry Hardwick. Harry too tough for his own good Hardwick. If you're listening, and I know you're not, you are too tough for your own good. And this is the question. I said I had a question with this fight. After having back-to-back losses, not just losses, a loss where he had to get hauled off on a stretcher because he couldn't walk because his legs got chopped down like really, really bad. I mean, we've seen people before, are limping at the end of it when they take a lot of leg kicks, but he had to get hauled off on a stretcher. Now he had to go to the hospital and have his face reconstructed, most likely, because he got his jaw completely obliterated. So let me ask, does this guy just need to retire? I understand he's tough and he doesn't want to give up. He wants to give it his all, but with 2 back-to-back losses that ended in really bad injuries, I wonder if maybe the fight game is just not for him and he needs to go do something else.
See, I from the way it ended and the last one, I would see where you would think that. But Hardwick was impressive this time, man. He can't help that his body gave out. They open this fight, and in the first minute, Hardwick manages to get Rahiki's back, lock in a body triangle, and start punishing him.
Interesting.
Rahiki did shake him off. You don't often see someone shaking off from a body triangle, but Hardwick and him went toe-to-toe, punching like they both thought they were Max Holloway.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was a really even matchup. Neither guy was afraid to get hurt, and obviously Hardwick's body gave out first, but it was impressive.
Do I need to look up Harry Hardwick's jaw picture and get my live reaction?
Yes.
All right, give me a minute. I'm sure it's on Google Images. Harry Hardwick jaw photo.
While you're looking that up, I'm going to do a quick call out to the.
Oh my God!
Ooh, you saw it.
Oh, so it's on the bottom. If the picture is not mirrored, a lot of pictures on. Yeah, some of the pictures when they post on social media are mirrored, so you don't know if it's actually left or right. But it looks like his bottom left, his right eye. Actually, it looks like both eyes are completely black. Like he's got all busted up, and oh my goodness, it's just so it's like the bottom side of his jaw is just like caved in, man.
Yeah,
I'm good.
You didn't need to see that.
If that happened to me, I would just not. I would just yeah. No, thank you, man.
Yep.
That's why I do jiu-jitsu. I don't like getting punched.
Speaking of jiu-jitsu, this next one, Kulaba versus Sai, we got to see some moderate jiu-jitsu out of it.
Oh, good. So I need to watch this one because I like when it's good jiu-jitsu, not boring, grindy, lay and pray. I like good jiu-jitsu.
This was a solid jiu-jitsu match. Both guys, again, very evenly matched. They started out the fight. Both of them came forward, popping leg kicks as hard as they could and, getting them checked. Fight went to the ground at about 2 minutes in. Sai grabbed a hold of a leg, started to lock in a heel hook, and Kulaba jerked out of it. And then Kulaba got a hold of Sai's neck, locked in the guillotine, rolled onto his back, and rolled Sai onto his back, and Sai tapped.
Interesting. So it was a back and forth submission attacks on each other.
Yes.
Fun. I'm going to have to. There's a few fights I want to go back and watch in its entirety, and I might do that later tonight. And that I'm going to add that one to my list.
It's 4.5 minutes well spent.
Awesome. Now, this next fight, I know nothing about it other than I saw people complaining about the scoring in this one, and I could see why they're complaining. So this one is a split decision where these numbers are wild. I'm just going to read the numbers here. One judge had 29-28 Charles Johnson. One had it 28-29, Bruno da Silva, and the other one had it 30-27, Johnson. How do you have numbers that are this all over the place? You saw the fight. It
was a balanced fight. It was an even fight.
So you had a lot of hard to score rounds. Is that what it was?
Yeah, all 3 rounds were close. Johnson showed a lot of really crisp striking. He did good. Silva
and he just fought.
Silva tried to mix grappling into his strategy. Johnson's anti-grappling was good enough to avoid it, and they just grounded it out for 15 minutes.
Charles Johnson just fought like a month and a half ago and lost by TKO, so I'm surprised he's back at it this soon.
Tough dude.
Yeah, he is a tough dude. He's also a veteran. This dude, how many fights does he have? He's got it's 27 fights. It's a good amount. I think you could call him a veteran.
Yeah.
He's been fighting since 2016. That's 10 years.
It's long enough to be a veteran.
Yeah.
But you notice we've gone through the whole main card now.
All right, go ahead.
It is the same story for most of these. They're very evenly matched, and I can't come up with any other way to say it than all of the current matchups are evenly matched, and it almost takes away from the experience.
Yeah. It's a good way to, I guess it's a good point to bring up looking at matches moving forward, how even they try to make things. I do have 2 other fights that I have questions on, but they are on the prelims. I don't know if you have notes on them or maybe just can remember for me. I do have a couple of questions here.
What you got?
All right, so Orobai, I told you last episode, and I still stand by this, Orobai in his previous fight, which I think was actually in 2024. I think he missed all 2025, if I'm not mistaken. But it's the last fight that he fought that he lost. Is honestly still one of my favorite fights I've ever seen of all time. He won against Chris Curtis, a teammate of Sean Strickland, last night. And Chris Curtis came out on social media and he complained, saying that Orobai was afraid to engage and he was just using a lot of kind of very cautious grappling and not wanting to really fight. And that just doesn't sound like the Orobai that I remember from that fight that I told you about, which was one of the best fights I've ever seen, because this dude is definitely not afraid to get in the fire when he needs to. So that being said, is Chris Curtis's complaints valid, or is it just him making excuses? So Orobai won, unanimous decision, all 3 judges 30-27. Was he just being a very cautious grappler, or was he really taking it to him? Was this a good fight? Was this worth watching? What do you think of this performance?
I can't help you on that one. That wasn't one of the prelim fights that I got into. I was up and down before the main card.
Gotcha.
Sorry, brother. You're going to have to watch that one yourself.
I'll go watch it myself because I was a little disappointed to see Chris saying that. I was a little confused because, as I said before, Orobai fought. And I could pull it up real quick. Give me just a minute. So it was actually not the last fight. It was actually several fights back, but it was in 2024, UFC 308. I remember this fight, and it was he did lose by split decision, and I think it was the correct decision. I think that he should have lost, but it still stands out as one of the most exciting fights I've ever seen in UFC history. UFC 308 is against Mateusz Rebecki. And it was a nasty, bloody, violent back and forth fight that resulted in Orobai's face a complete red mask. It was just straight blood all over his face. So knowing this guy is not afraid to go on the fire, he has 7 wins by knockout, 6 by submission. So you know he is going to stand and trade with a lot of people. This is a guy that just definitely doesn't sound like someone who's afraid to engage, based off of what I've seen. And Chris Curtis came out, and his big complaint was he's fighting someone who's afraid to engage and was just basically doing like really safe grappling instead. So it seemed like a weird complaint to make on a guy who is historically not that type of fighter. So I wanted to get your take on it, but if you don't remember, if you didn't get to see it, I'll have to go back and watch it, and I'll give my take on it later. I have one other fight I was going to ask about, unless you have something else you want to say on this.
Nope. I'm ready to go to the next battle.
All right, so You love your heavyweights, man. I'm a big heavyweight fan too. That was probably the division I followed the most before I took my break and watching it many years ago, back when I was watching like the Frank Mir, Brock Lesnar, Cain Velasquez like era. Big fan of heavyweight, and we want to see big names come up. And I'm always talking about this Mario Pinto guy. I've mentioned him a whole bunch of times. But another name I'd mention, because I was really impressed with his last win, was this guy Vitor Petrino, who did fight this past weekend. And he fought and won by decision. And the fight that I saw him fight was his previous fight, and he won by submission. If I remember correctly, it might have been TKO, but I remember he did a lot of grappling. Let me pull it up so I could have my... Okay, so his last fight that I saw him win, it was actually by KO, but it was after he did a lot of grappling. Like, he did submission attacks, he did a lot of wrestling, he did a lot of judo, and he controlled with the grappling, but then he finished with strikes. So I was really impressed with his grappling and striking combinations, and he won again against Steven Asplund this past weekend, 29-28 by all three judges. And I just got to ask, because he was one of the names I mentioned, that a name that you need to keep your eye on in the heavyweight division for the guys that we want to see, the young up-and-comers, to shake up the rankings. So now that we did get to see him fight, do you think this is a guy that could potentially skyrocket up in the rankings and shake things up, and is a name that you think that we should keep following?
I think both these guys are guys that we should keep following. I didn't see Petrino do any wrestling this match.
Okay.
He and Asplund stood, they banged, they were accurate. The best part about it is we had two heavyweights, neither of which gassed over 15 minutes of fighting, of active fighting, and no one tried to lay on each other.
Nice.
Asplund, I have to give props to this dude. I looked him up because it's obvious he's got some loose skin. He was at 520 pounds and lost the weight doing MMA and pushed it to become a professional and get signed with the UFC. That's motivation. I've had to lose 100 pounds before. It's hard.
Yeah. I'm working on that myself.
Dedication to turn himself into a top talent. Because if you're in the UFC, regardless of if you're the last place in the division, you're still a top talent for the sport.
Yeah.
Petrino looked good. Asplund looked good. Both these guys have great gas tanks. They've got power. They've got accuracy. Petrino's gonna go a long way, just because the next 10 after this don't have the gas tank to keep up with him.
Yeah.
You know, Asplund may have a couple more to go before he gets into the rankings properly, but I think he's going to continue to get better.
Yep. All right, so we will continue keeping an eye on the name of Vitor Petrino, and also we're going to add Asplund to that list. Now, earlier, yes,
concrete,
yes, because he works in concrete. For the record, that's his little backstory on that. I saw an interview where he talked about that. So,
I didn't do that.
Yep, that's why. So earlier, you got my live reaction of looking up Harry Hardwick's busted jaw and getting my reaction. I just pulled up an X.com or Twitter link to a good HD photo of Oralby in the fight that I'm talking about, where he lost by split decision, but it was still like one of the most incredible fights I've ever seen, where you could see how busted up his face was towards the end of the fight. I just sent you the link. I want you to go ahead and pull up that link, and let's get your reaction to that photo.
It's loading now. Oh, that's a lot of blood.
Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on.
A lot of blood. That looks like paint. Are you sure this isn't staged?
Hold on. I got another one for you. Let's see. This one's actually through Instagram. You're going to have to scroll to the second photo. See if you can pull that up. And it's going to pull up one photo. Go to like the second photo, and you can see. There's actually a few photos here. Oh my God.
Are you talking about where his eyes swollen under it?
Yeah, and there's blood. If you scroll through, you can see some fight photos and blood dripping. So this is a very violent fight.
You know what causes that area around the eye to blow out like that, right?
Getting punched in the face.
getting punched in the face, cracking your orbital, and then blowing the blood out of your nose.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah, that's a sure sign of a cracked orbital. That's brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to share with you that that train wreck. You still need to go back and watch that fight. The next time we have a chance to hang out, I'm going to pull it up. We're going to watch it together because it still stands up as one of my favorite fights of all time. It was very violent. Very, very violent.
I'm always down to watch a little bit of blood and violence.
Yep. Do you want to talk about any other fights on this card?
Nope. This card, it was the same story through all of it. Very evenly matched. And that's my only comment about it, is very evenly matched.
And I know that you're at least happy that Brad Tavares lost.
Oh my gosh. I forgot that tool got beat on. Yes, Brad Tavares lost. I watched him on The Ultimate Fighter years ago, and he's my least favorite contestant ever. I do not like that man, and him losing is a highlight of my night.
All right, so next week we have another UFC Fight Night. Evlov, however you say this guy's last name. He is undefeated, and he has a very notable win against Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez's first fight in the UFC was against Evloev, and he lost. But he's been very inactive since then. He's fought once in 2023, twice in 2024, in January and December, so they weren't like back-to-back. Didn't fight at all in 2025, and so now he's finally back in 2026 fighting another undefeated fighter, Leron Murphy. So 2 undefeated fighters in the featherweight division fighting against each other. And when I look at their stats, when you got 2 undefeated fighters and I start looking at fighting styles and what their strengths and weaknesses are and all that kind of stuff, sometimes it can be kind of tricky on figuring out who's going to win. But in this case, I hope I'm wrong. I really, really, really hope I'm wrong. But I think Evloev is going to take this one because Leron Murphy, he is primarily a striker, but it doesn't look like he has a lot of anti-grappling. He doesn't have a lot of defensive grappling. He's a jiu-jitsu purple belt, which is, middle of the road in the jiu-jitsu realm. But Evloev is a really good wrestler, a very, very good wrestler. And I just have a sneaking suspicion that Evloev is going to do what he does, and that is eventually take Murphy down. And I don't know if Murphy's going to be able to get back up. I think if Murphy can keep it standing, he could win in the striking exchanges and win by knockout, but I have a feeling that Movsar, Evloev, it's one or the other, I can't remember. I think he's going to take him down. He's going to grind a decision, and I really hope I'm wrong. Really, really, really hope Murphy proves me wrong and wins by a really nice knockout. But either way, unless it results in a draw, one of these guys will no longer be undefeated when this fight's over. Do you have any thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, so I'm actually on the other boat for this one.
I hope you're right.
I think that ring rust is real, and Evloev has been not just out, he was out with long COVID, which even a year later can still be affecting his cardio and ability to perform. I think that Murphy being more active and not coming off of a serious illness is going to make the difference here.
Yeah, let's see how active Murphy has been. He fought twice in 2025, twice in 2024.
August and April.
Yeah, so in 2023, 2024, and 2025, he's fought twice a year each of those years. So that's average paced, once every 6 months, roughly.
Man, if that was average, I would be so happy. We've got so many that only fight once a year, especially people with belts.
That's what I consider maybe average is not the right term. It's like
it's like a median. It's like a median. It's not an average. It's a mean.
Yes, that's like what should be the average. I hope you're right, and I hope that the
first time since I've been an adult that I've ever used middle school math, and it was just the vocabulary.
Nice. Ring rust is real, and I hope that does come into play. I hope you're right, because I'm just not really too excited with Evloev. Leron Murphy shows a lot of potential. I hope he can prove me wrong. I almost feel like changing, now that you mentioned the ring rust thing, I kind of feel like changing my picks, but I've already said it on the air, so I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with it, but I hope that I am wrong, and I hope that the way you said it is right. I'm not super confident in this one anyway, so if I'm wrong on this one, cool. It's fine.
Okay. Well, up next, we've got another guy with a donut.
Yes. So Luke Riley, undefeated, going against Michael Aswell, ASWL, Aswell. Maybe it's Aswell. I don't know. He's also fighting Michael as well.
Yeah, that ability to replicate yourself in the ring really does make a difference.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to go with Luke Riley in this one. He's undefeated, and Aswell is 2-2 in his last 4. Hasn't really fought anyone notable. Neither of these guys have really fought anyone that notable, but as the people that Aswell's fought has not looked as impressive, and he has a handful of losses pretty recently, going against someone who's undefeated. So this one of those cases where I'm kind of impressed with that undefeated record against someone who has recent losses. So for that alone, I'm going with Riley. Now, this next fight,
my favorite, Can Crusher.
Yes. These guys both look like Can Crushers to me. Just one of them's a more notable Can Crusher. So MVP, I've said it time and time again for years before this podcast existed, and I've said it plenty of times since this podcast has started. I really wish MVP would have came over to the UFC a lot earlier in his career when he was more in his prime, when he was younger. But I think he was content staying in Bellator, fighting easier competition, because he is, as you said before, a true Can Crusher. Not someone who's fought lower competition because that was available to him, but because they aim for that, instead of... They avoid the big fights and the big organizations because they know they could kind of coast by over here. And that's what Michael Page has done. He finally comes over to the big leagues, and he's still doing well. He's just not elite, especially this late in his career. And he's going against a guy, Sam Patterson, who, when I look at his record, he's 14 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. So it's a pretty solid record in his own right. But I look at all the competition he's had, and he hasn't fought a single name that I recognize. So another guy that looks like a Can Crusher. So when I look at these 2 records, MVP only has 3 losses. So he only has 1 more loss, but he's faced much, much, much stiffer competition. I think Page, with his experience and fighting better competition, I think he's just going to come out with the win in this one.
I always want to back Page. He's one of my favorite all-time fighters. In interviews, he's a really nice guy. But what I am concerned about here is that his last fight at welterweight was his last loss. Now, that was against Ian Gary. But this isn't the weight class that he's been competitive at.
That is true. But at the end of the day, it was Ian Gary he lost to. And he made it somewhat competitive, at least on the feet.
Yeah, it just, Dana's got to get him back into middleweight where he belongs.
Yeah.
But with that said, I'm pulling for Page. He's my dude. Let's get it on.
All right. Now, moving on to the next fight, we have a light heavyweight bout between Austin Lane. And you know what? I'm always going in head first with these really screwed up names. And I'm the one that always sounds like an idiot trying to mispronounce or pronounce these names. It's your turn. It is your turn to see the struggles I have to go through. So you see this next fight, Austin Lane. That's an easy one to pronounce. And he is fighting... Who's he fighting, Roy?
Iwo Baranowski. Iwo Baranowski.
It's like a Japanese first name and a Polish last name.
Yeah, definitely not a snowboarder. I think that I'm going to pull for him. I know nothing about either of these guys. Baranowski's undefeated, so yay for him. But just so that I can say that name whenever if we get to live stream next weekend, I'm pulling for Baranowski.
Baranowski is undefeated, and Austin Lane is 13-7. We talk about that 67%. So you have to have double the wins as your losses. He's actually below that by one fight. So he is slightly below the numbers that we could throw out there when we throw out the overused phrase gatekeeper. He is slightly below that level going to get somebody who's undefeated. So yeah.
We talked about this. You can't say the word. You have to replace it. We'll call him a shield maiden.
Shield maiden? That'll work.
Unless you've got something better.
We'll think of that. That'll be a work in progress. But still, we talk about that 67%. Basically, if I see you're at that number, it means you're getting 2 wins for every 1 loss. And when that happens, you kind of just stay floating in the same position, usually, more or less. And when you're a little bit below that, like 13-7, going to get someone undefeated, I think this is one of the situations where they just found someone available in the weight class to feed to a guy who's undefeated just to kind of boost him up a little bit. Basically, they're using Austin Lane as a jobber. I think that's really what's going on. I think they're feeding a guy that should be an easy win for Baranowski to climb the rankings in light heavyweight. So if I'm not mistaken, this guy is not ranked, but he is undefeated, so give him a couple of good wins. This will probably be like, look impressive in this fight, win it, and look impressive doing it, and we'll give you a top 15 for your next fight. That's what I think is going to go on here.
Yep, 100%. Baranowski is going to climb the ladder.
All right, so you have Roman, you called him a few weeks ago, Doldiz. You have Roman Dolidze going against Christian Leroy Duncan. And in this one, I have Dolidze pretty much kind of like the MVP versus Sam Patterson fight. They both have pretty impressive records, but Dolidze's fought much better competition, and he has wins against some of that good competition where Duncan hasn't fought really anyone good. When I look at his full record, his full career record, the very few decent names he's fought, every single one of them he's lost to. If it's a decent name, a notable name, a ranked name, or even close to ranked name, anytime he's fought someone at that level, he's lost to him. All of his wins, even though he has a really good record, all of his wins are against absolute nobodies. So I'm going to go with Dolidze in this one. Dolidze, I think he's got the experience, he's got the talent. I mean, Christian Leroy Duncan is 13-2. But he lost against RoboCop. He lost against Armin Petrosian. And then his wins are against Dennis Tilu. How in the world do you pronounce this? I'm just going to spell it out for you. Tiuliulin. Tululin? Claudio Ribeiro.
I think it's that hot sauce they have at the Mexican restaurants. Tallulah.
Tallulah. You're thinking of Cholula, which is my favorite hot sauce for the record. All right, now we'll say this real quick. I will give Christian Leroy Duncan this much credit. He is on a 3-fight win streak against 2 people that I don't really know, one of them that I do know. In his last 2 fights, he won by KO, and in both of them, he got Performance of the Night bonuses. So he does have something going for him here. But at the end of the day, I still think Dolidze just has more impressive wins against more impressive opponents. So I'm going to stick with Dolidze in this one.
And I am going to agree with you. I think Roman Dolidze is going to take it because I like pronouncing his name that way, and I think that I'm right.
Okay.
And we'll have to ask him next time he's on the podcast.
If we could get him.
Again.
Right. So now you got a featherweight fight. I was trying to say fight and bout at the same time, and I said we have a featherweight fout. We have a featherweight fout coming up between Curtis Campbell and Danny Silva, and another undefeated guy. We have Curtis Campbell is undefeated, but he hasn't really fought anyone that impressive. And I look at Danny Silva's record, which is a good record. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I remember when I reviewed it, he has a good record, although it's not quite undefeated. But he has faced much, much stiffer competition. I'm more impressed with the competition he's had. That's kind of a narrative that you're going to hear with me a lot. So he's 10-2. That's a narrative you're going to hear with me a lot. that when you have a guy who has a more impressive record but hasn't fought anyone all that good going against someone who has maybe a less good like win-loss ratio, like percentage, but has fought much better competition, I'm going to usually be more impressed with who's fought better competition. Danny Silva has fought much better competition than Curtis Campbell has. So even though Curtis Campbell is undefeated and Danny Silva's 10-2, which is still a pretty good record, I think that Curtis Campbell's going to lose his undefeated record here. I think Danny Silva's going to take him out.
No way, man. This is why you got to watch Contender Series sometimes. I saw this guy take down Demba Sek in 1:20 with knees and elbows.
So you're going with Campbell?
He's impressive. Okay. Yes.
All right.
Campbell is something special for the division.
All right. Well, we will tune in. This is a fight card that I will not be skipping because I got some fights on here I want to see.
Also, we got to tighten up on these fight night cards. There are too many of these that we're not familiar with. We're professionals now. We've got to know our craft.
Well, there are so many fighters in the UFC. There are just so many, and some of these names come and go. I think even the most hardcore people.
It's not like we get to learn them when they're coming up through Pride or through K1 anymore.
Yeah, it's just
they're coming up through Contenders, and you don't see anything of them until they're actually in the UFC.
Right. There is one other fight I want to mention on the prelims, and I'm not even going to bother giving a prediction because if you've been listening to me for months now, you already know what my prediction is. We keep talking about the heavyweight division and trying to shake the rankings up by getting young blood up into the rankings. And I've mentioned this guy's name a million times already. Mario Pinto finally fighting. It's been a handful of months since he's fought. I think it might have been right before we started the podcast, maybe right after. Can't remember off the top of my head. Mario Pinto is fighting next week, and I've been harping this guy for a very long time. Very, very impressive heavyweight fighter. He doesn't even look like a heavyweight. He looks like a light heavyweight. Like he has the physique of a light heavyweight. He moves as fast as a middleweight. He's undefeated, 11-0, and he is fighting next weekend. Now, what's driving me crazy about Mario Pinto's career is he has fought already in the UFC twice now. He was supposed to have a third fight, but it got canceled. So he's fighting another unranked opponent. He's on his third fight in the UFC, all unranked people, even though he's undefeated. It's kind of hard to move you up the rankings when they keep putting you against unranked people. When we have other unranked people making their debut in the UFC against top 5 opponents. Curtis Blades a few months ago fought somebody who was unranked, and Curtis Blades is the top 5 fighter. And they just bumped this guy immediately into top 5, competition. You have Josh Hokett, who has just recently entered the UFC, and he fought someone at the very bottom of the top 15, and he's fighting Curtis Blades next.
Going to get whooped.
I hope so.
He's going to get his mouth shut.
I really hope so.
Curtis, that's what we need.
I agree with you, but that's another topic. That's another rabbit hole to go down. The point I'm trying to get at is I'm seeing these opportunities that are being thrown around with heavyweight division being so shallow and being a much smaller when it comes to like the total roster of fighters on there. You get 1 or 2 good wins and boom, you're already in the top 10, top 5. And Mario Pinto have been harping on forever is once again fighting another unranked opponent and is driving me insane.
It's really impressive to still be fighting unranked guys when heavyweight has only 32 guys in it total and 15 of them are ranked.
Yeah. And this dude's 11-0 still fighting unranked people. So all that being said, you already know who I'm going for in this one. I hope Pinto demolishes this guy within the first round, and he better fight someone ranked next. The dude has 1 win by submission, 7 wins by KOs, so he is primarily a finisher. Yeah, I will be tuning in next week, and I will be very excited to see Mario Pinto put the work on this guy and hopefully prove me right, prove my ranting right for months now. This guy is a future star in the heavyweight division.
I'm I'm with it. I don't know enough about Pinto or Franco to have an educated opinion on this one, but I will know about them by the time they fight.
Well, I've watched Mario Pinto's last few fights, and he is very impressive to watch. Now, if you're looking at the full card here, if you go one fight below Mario Pinto and Felipe Franco, can you pronounce that fighter's name?
Kondrata Victus.
You do better than I do.
Kondrata Victus.
Mantis Kondratavicius.
I think it's a hard C.
Maybe.
Victus.
You think so? Usually if I see C-I-U-S, I think Cius, like Vinicius. Yeah. So, and it does have a C-I-U-S. So I think it might be Kondratavicius. Going against Antonio Trucoli. Broccoli. It looks like broccoli, but it's a T. Trocli. Antonio Trocli. They got a few.
That sounds like
names
a
here.
Swedish chocolate.
Probably. Might be.
Oh.
Anyway.
All right. So I gotta put you on the spot, Vince.
Okay.
Next week, we spent for the audience, this week figuring out our streaming for YouTube, and now we have a grip on it. Vince, do you think we're going to live stream a watch party for the fights for the main card this week?
We might.
We got to give the audience a definite.
It's really hard for me to do definites, though. I have a whole house to consider here, so you can't put me on the spot and expect an answer immediately. I will try to make that happen, and actually, if I could make it happen, I would like to actually tune in sometime the prelims, because I would like to get me talking live during the Mario Pinto fight. I wish he was fighting higher up in the prelims.
Hey, I only limit to the main card because you've got a family and I know they take time. If you want to watch you want to do a watch party for the prelims through the main card, I'm completely down for that.
I'll have to figure out a way to set it up. We will see.
We're going to try.
We're going to try. Are we going to meet up face to face and do it? Or going to do it remotely?
We'll have to see.
We'll have to see. You put me on the spot, I'll put you on the spot. How about you host it?
If we do it face to face, I'll bring my mic so that we've got the omnidirectional and we don't have to talk directly into yours.
That'll work.
All right.
So,
well,
do you have any MMA news to talk about, or is that it really?
Oh, of course, we've got the White House card being in jeopardy, whether or not that's going to be a sanctioned fight, or they're going to be sanctioned fights.
Because of the athletic commissions and zoning and all that stuff?
Yep, they haven't gotten a sanction from the governing body, and someone's actually made the argument, I don't remember who, that they don't need permission. I think it was Dana that said they don't need it because it's on federal land. But the argument from the other side is if they don't get it sanctioned, then these are all exhibition bouts, which means no belts change hands.
That is really weird.
Yes.
They need to figure out some way to fix that.
Yeah. Well, they got time. But then we've got Ronda Rousey sneaking out of her cave to come back after, 12 years of not fighting.
The bitter ex.
Claw her way back to relevance by talking as big as she can in every interview that will have her.
It's been, I think, 9 years, if I remember correctly. I could confirm that real quick.
Yeah, but she'll be facing against the exquisite Gina Carano, one of the most beautiful women ever to grace the pages of the MMA.
No, the most beautiful. She is number one.
Rose Namajunas, bro. No. With hair?
No.
Fuck Rose with hair.
No. Rose is not even... I'm about to make you very mad at me. Rose is not even top 5.
Oh, man. I knew that your standards were whack, but... Wow. Now you are including hair when you think of Rose.
Yes.
Terrible, buddy. Terrible. Let's see. Is there any other MMA news that you could think of?
Not really. I was gonna briefly mention the whole Ronda Rousey thing. So I've mentioned a few times in this podcast that I used to watch pro wrestling. I'm not really into it these days. I haven't watched it in years, actually. But I at least still track, because just pages I follow on social media, like when big things happen, I kind of see it. So for those of you that don't know, and I'm sure most of you know, Ronda Rousey, after she left the UFC, she went into WWE for a while. She had a very mediocre career. They treated her kind of like the UFC treated her. They just skyrocketed her to the top immediately. They made her main event WrestleMania in her very first year. They made her superstar overnight, even though she hadn't really put in, the same mat time as all the other people working the WWE have been for years, right? And she just wasn't getting her way, and eventually quits within maybe 2-ish years. I can't remember off the top of my head. And she had a lot of negative things to say about WWE after she left. The reason why I mention all this, you're like, why are we talking about WWE? This is MMA page. Because she treats the UFC the same exact way. So she leaves UFC and it's the same thing. The UFC was so bad. They were so terrible to me, and they didn't treat me right. They didn't pay me enough, and yada, yada, yada. They didn't appreciate my talent. And she goes to WWE and it's the same exact thing. She got treated like an absolute princess, better than all the other talent on the roster that should have been getting that kind of treatment. And it still wasn't enough for her. She still complained. She still left. And she wrote an entire book complaining about both the UFC and the WWE after she left. Now she's trying to get back into relevance. So she is now joining this Netflix MMA organization, I suppose, and they're building a card. And she is spending all this time talking so negatively about the UFC. She's been mostly silent about them for the last few years because I guess there's just nothing else to talk about. And now, once again, she's like a bitter ex going after UFC once again. And you could tell what she's trying to do. She's basically a narcissist that really needs validation. Now, this is why the reason why I'm mentioning all this, and the reason why I mentioned the pro wrestling part, is for those of you that don't follow pro wrestling, the current big rival to WWE, and they're nowhere nearly as powerful as WWE, but they're still probably the next biggest rival promotion is AEW, which I don't even follow. I've never followed AEW. I just know they exist, and I sometimes see stuff pop up on the wrestling news channels that I still follow on like Facebook and stuff. Ronda Rousey, like last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I think it was just last week, also debuted in AEW. Go figure. She is trying to get one over on both of her recent exes, so to speak, in terms of her career, WWE and UFC. And now she is simultaneously going back into MMA on the Netflix side and wrestling on the AEW side. I honestly think Ronda Rousey is a narcissist, and I'm not using that term hyperbolically. Like, a lot of people use that term in a hyperbolic way. If someone's arrogant, they call them a narcissist. No, if you really break down narcissistic personality disorder, you could Google it, you could look at the traits, and it comes across as ego, but it's a lot deeper than that. It's like there's a lot of internal like doubts within themselves, and they just have to have validation from everyone around them. If they don't get their way, it's always excuses and blaming everybody else, and everybody else is the problem. It's a very deep-seated mental issue. Like it's not me just trying to trash talk her mental health or anything like that. I'm being legitimate when I say this. Like talk to a psychiatrist about this kind of thing. It's a legitimate thing. Narcissistic personality disorder. Look at all of those traits, and it lines up to Ronda Rousey to a T. The reason why I'm on this long rant talking about that is all this stuff. If you follow Ronda Rousey and all this trash talk she is doing, thrown at WWE, she's talking about, I'm gonna take your job, mother effer, talking about Hunter Campbell, and she's going after Dana White. And it's not that we're trying to be fanboys of the UFC and the head honchos there, but when I see her making all these comments to try to get one over on them and show that, we are the next big thing and I am the one that's relevant, not you. Every time I see it and every time you see it, just think to yourself, this is just a narcissist in action. And it really should all be just taken with a grain of salt, because for the next few months, you're going to see a whole lot of it on social media. If you follow any social media pages like we do, you're going to see a whole lot come from Ronda Rousey. And just remember, she is a full-blown narcissist. And what you're seeing is narcissistic behavior, someone who is doing everything they can to blame everybody else, make it look like everybody else is a problem, just so she could try to keep some type of relevance, so she could quell the demons that are within herself.
She's not a narcissist. She just plays one on TV.
She is a full-blown narcissist, 100%. And I'm not using that as a generic insult. A lot of people nowadays, they overuse that word. They throw it around as a generic insult. I'm not throwing it around as a generic insult. I'm talking from a clinical, medical standpoint. She is a narcissist. And what you're seeing is narcissistic behavior. So I just want to get that rant off my chest when it comes to all that. Any other MMA news we got to talk about? Fights, anything like that?
Francis is fighting on the Netflix card, and I've never heard of the guy that he's fighting. Let's see, what was his name?
I don't even really care about that card, to be honest with you.
Well, it's news. Francis is going to come back to fight MMA again. That puts the lineal heavyweight belt somewhere into the ether. And back into action. So maybe Tom will be able to unify down the road.
Who knows? Hey, while you're looking that up, I noticed you were talking about Mike Perry and Nate Diaz fight on social media, and someone replied to you saying that you were wrong, and he gave a few points why, but one of the points he said why was Mike Perry is in his prime and Nate Diaz is always training, because I think you mentioned, because you mentioned something about like these two are, they're not really relevant anymore, and he was saying Mike Perry's in his prime. All right,
Mike Perry is in his prime for bare knuckle fighting, not for his MMA prime.
That's what
he's been away from the sport for a relatively long time to do bare knuckle, and Nate Diaz, he hasn't been relevant in a while.
That's what I was going to get to. So he has not fought in MMA in almost 5 years. And if you do look at his last handful of fights, his last 10 fights, he's lost 7 of them. If that's prime, come on. He hasn't been prime since 2017.
Exactly. Philippe Lins is who Francis is fighting.
Yeah. I had to say something when I saw that comment about Mike Perry still being his prime. I'm like, do you know what prime means?
I still haven't found the right voice to use when dealing with people disagreeing with me on the Poundcast page.
This wasn't even the Poundcast page. You commented just on a normal MMA page, and then someone replied to you saying that, and I replied to them, and it didn't look like they responded back to me. But I just use stats.
Yeah,
I just use stats because that's just ridiculous. Say Mike Perry's still in his prime, and it's not me throwing shade at Mike Perry. I actually like Mike Perry. I got my bare knuckle fighting championship subscription because I wanted to watch Mike Perry still fight. I like him, but for you to come out and say he's in his prime, you are absolutely insane.
Yeah, he's been doing good in bare knuckle. Don't get me wrong, but it's not MMA. MMA is a very different sport.
Very different sport. So that's basically
prime comes down, and I think you said it pretty clearly, but prime comes down to more than just your age.
Yeah. Well, it's basically all I got on MMA news and last week's event, this coming week's event. Anything else you want to add?
Professor Xavier in Doomsday is going to be played by Patrick Stewart. There, you got a nerd fact out of me.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Nope. That would be it for the Poundcast for tonight.
All right. Make sure you tune in next week where we break down the next UFC Fight Night that is being headlined by Movsar Evloev and Lerone Murphy. That is going to be a very fun event. You don't want to miss it, and we'll make sure that we break down There's a lot of undefeated people that are on this next card, so it's going to be very interesting. You don't want to miss it. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.